Welcome back to the second part of the RPS conversation on how the pandemic has turned life upside down for the UK's cherished constellation of orchestras. I'm James Murphy from the Royal Philharmonic Society, and I'm joined by co-principal cello of the Scottish Chamber Orchestra, Sue Lee, bassoonist with the Ulster Orchestra, Greg Topping, principal tuba of the BBC National Orchestra of Wales, Daniel Trodden, and principal percussionist of Manchester Camerata, Janet Fulton. Janet, if we can come to you for a moment, you have long been a hero of ours at the RPS, balancing your work at the Camerata, also with being a community first responder for the ambulance service. But as you mentioned already in the first part of the conversation, you've taken that to a bit of another level. Do tell us more about that.
Right, well, at the beginning of when the lockdown started, the community first responders for Yorkshire Ambulance Service were an ideal resource because we had all the safeguarding done, the DBS. We'd got our safeguarding level 2s, and we'd been used to turning up at red calls for the ambulance because that's what we do, as a volunteer. So we were popped into, I'm driving 100 miles a day when I'm working to the Wakefield headquarters, and we were trained really quickly, so it was a bit like learning on the job. And instead of attending people, I was actually sending ambulances out as part of what I was then doing. And as I say, it was really frightening at first because the responsibility, and obviously at that point, virtually all the calls were people with symptoms with coronavirus. It's calmed down now. We're only working 4 days a week now, and we've been trained to accept dental calls, and we talk to paramedics and various other things. So they've kept us on because we're just useful to ease the backlog with the 111 service, which has been really heavily hit. And I mean, obviously, it's a privilege to be able to do something for a start. Like we're all saying, that's something we all miss doing is doing things for others. And so social media's been brilliant for keeping that going. So I was really grateful to be able to feel as if I was doing something. And obviously I didn't have the same experience of staying in the house and so on, because I was going out virtually every day, 6 days a week at first for the first 3 months, I suppose. But the other thing, of course, is, as I say, at first I wasn't able to do anything other than, do the work, and then I would come home and then log on as a volunteer. So basically I was working like 20 hours a day for the NHS, either paid or unpaid. And I had no energy at all really for virtually anything else. However, now I've started my musical side, is the creative side, started to come back. So I'm in talks with Yorkshire Ambulance. What I'm hoping to do is to do some kind of rhythmic, not samba, but Latin type rhythms and other rhythms using pots and pans. And because I think the thing is that the NHS is realising how important music and the arts are. And the big thing to come now will be, as well as people's physical health, is their mental health. And music, it's a language. It speaks to your innermost being, right inside each individual. But it also is a communicator tool right the way across the world. It's an instant language for everybody, wherever they come from, wherever in the world. So I think this is our role now. As orchestral members, as musicians, it's going to be to help healing. It's going to be there for people. On that panel at the ABO conference that I spoke on for health and wellbeing in February, there was James Sanderson, who's the director of personalised care for the NHS. And he's saying now that even the most hardened cynics within the medical profession are turning to music and the arts to help with their mental health and well-being. So now is the time for us to move forward, enabling, as many people as possible to use music for their own personal well-being and for a community, and bringing people back together for that well-being and help and so on. I think that's going to be so important for all of us. So I'm going to try and do it through work, as I say, at the ambulance service. So I'm meeting with the health and wellbeing team on the 10th of August, and also hopefully with the volunteers as well, and then trying to maybe roll that idea out further in the future, but start with the Yorkshire Ambulance Service, so doing some music with them as well. I just feel now we have a big part to play in recovery and ongoing living.
It seems to me that the moment has almost like cracked open something that I think we all knew was evident, that music is this incredible, vital, giving force in this country. And just as lockdown started, it was so amazing to see musicians like yourselves. You just could not help but give yourselves, and just fling yourself headfirst into that kind of like the thicket of technological challenges, because you had to keep giving. And we could see the appetite for that. I think, myself stuck here in lockdown, everyone, we've really cherished what you as musicians has given us. And it's like, this is it, this ecology, this sort of circle of giving has always existed, but suddenly it seems more manifest.
A friend of mine, actually a folk musician called Duncan Chisholm, folk fiddle. He did a thing called the COVID Ceilidh. Every single day of lockdown, he played a tune and sometimes invited friends like myself. I played, my partner Hamish Napier. We did various things where we did collaborations on screen. But essentially, he provided that every single day of lockdown, and the number of comments that come flooding in from people literally from all over the world, in excess of 30,000 people daily. Were commenting about how much calm or joy or uplifting or just how much help he gave to a lot of people in their isolation. So for sure, it's the generosity of a lot of these musicians. Everyone we all want to do things. So just that possibility has been wonderful in terms of reaching out.
Yeah, I mean, what a lot of us wanted to do was do a sort of Joe Wicks type, daily workshop, warm-up, or something along those lines. But of course, with, as Janet mentioned, there were various GDPR and safeguarding issues. It's never as simple as that, certainly not for the BBC, and for lots of good reasons. So what we ended up doing was going to specific schools signed up for what they call Connecting the Dots, which is a BBC-wide education and outreach service. And I feel, I haven't got the exact numbers, but we must have been able to go to more schools as a result, because we could run concurrent workshops, which wasn't always possible pre-pandemic because of the schedule. So, would there actually be some musicians free during school, when was convenient for the school, because we might be doing rehearsals or concerts ourselves. And also there are certain contractual things which I won't get into now, which make it difficult sometimes for us to get to as many schools as we'd like. But one thing that has come out of the pandemic is that we've been able to go in either individually, or my partner and I are both in the orchestra, so we've been doing them as a pair, going into special needs schools and mainstream schools all across the country, and in some quite rural areas. And that has felt fantastic, just seeing close up what a difference that makes to the students, obviously, but also to the teachers, just giving them a bit of a rest, because that's a full-on job, being a teacher. And also, I'm hoping that some parents that were homeschooling, some of the online content that we've provided, some of the educational stuff, build your own instrument, recycled instruments and stuff like that, that's given homeschooling a bit of a focus. Because I agree, we all knew how important music was, and I think a lot of the public know how important music and the arts in general are to education, but not, just a well-rounded existence. It would sometimes be nice if that was recognised more by, I've got to be careful what I say here, but by the government. Because, it's all good and well saying that the arts are very important and saying how much we all contribute to the GDPR of this, what do I mean? Not GDPR. The overall economy of the country, but sometimes having that backed up, money being put where mouths are would be really, hopefully that will be something that comes out of this pandemic. But also I've got to say, just seeing how the general public have responded creatively, there's been some amazing stuff put up online, musical offerings, comedy things through TikTok. I think everyone's got their creative side out during lockdown. I've really enjoyed Grace and Perry's Art Club on Channel 4, just seeing what, with a bit more time on their hands perhaps, or just, a bit a different headspace, what people have been able to create. So I'm hoping that going forward, the whole nation and world really will see that the arts and creative industries, that we can all contribute to it, and that it's a really important thing to bring us together, to connect us, and just something that's important for our individual well-being. I think there's a creative bit inside of everyone, whether it's music or visual arts or comedy or acting. I don't know, just some of the little sketches that came out during the early lockdown stages. I think people are more creative than they realise, So I'd love to see a bit more of that, or loads more of that going forward. But like I say, I'd love to see it recognised in a more official capacity by the government in the curriculum, and also with the amount of money that's given towards the creative industries.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also put the emphasis on that music, it isn't a privilege for when things are going well, it's an essential thing for when things aren't going well. And it's really the combination of contributors from, the general public, people who, I've noticed lots of people who aren't professional musicians posting videos of them playing when the clap for carers. We even, near me, because I live very close to the Harland and Wolff shipyard with the big Samson and Goliath cranes in Belfast, and they were sounding the ship's horn when they launched ships, which hasn't sounded in about 25 years. So everyone from every walk of life has been contributing, and it's amazing. It's a really wonderful thing to see. I sort of ended up meeting neighbours and throughout the balconies when we would all go outside that I would never have met, had this not have occurred. And the things, as Dan said, we managed to reach a lot of schools, whereas before it would be it's a difficult thing to actually get to these places. So we've been doing lots of Zoom calls, and we did even ones with each parent and had their kid on their lap on their sofas, and we were doing a little Peter and the Wolf playthrough, and having different cards up, guessing which instrument is what character. And things like that, it's really heartening to see, and it's the kids really lap that stuff up, and it's nice to, because they tend to be more tech savvy than I am anyway, so if they know what's going on the screen, and it's the mixture of sort of the slightly more serious. We're trying to give what we do on day in day out like a straight performance, and then on the other hand you've got the more comedic stuff. We did a funny one where I taught our managing director used to be a bassoonist 20 years ago, and I gave him a contra lesson through Zoom, and then it ended with he did a performance of the Mozart duo with our principal double bass. It's cracking. It's all my handiwork.
I feel there's a kind of almost like a reframing or reclaiming of orchestra as well. Like, I think a lot of people still have a kind of 19th century impression of an orchestra, and imagine you on the stage over there behind your music stands in your penguin suits. And I've known this because I've run an orchestra in the past, and this, but like we're seeing the personalities of the orchestra a bit more, the likes of you who really drive things, and seeing that they're everyday people with the sort of the same impulses and the same heartbeat as anybody else, and that seems like a really useful thing to take forward.
Our management, for instance, have really like try to focus on exactly that. Like we do a thing called Live from the Living Room. So you go around the orchestra and basically have people in their own living rooms playing to our regular audience. But I'd say we kind of, because we're a chamber orchestra, it must be much the same as the Camerata. The outfit itself, we're self-employed as such, but the outfit is more maybe manageable, maneuverable. So we've been discussing how we can get back out performing live, certainly beyond the digital, in much smaller groups. So as lockdown eases, we're very much planning what we can do in smaller groups of duos upwards, to larger groups, and that's obviously venue dependent, because there's so many venues that are not allowing us to be in our sort of socially distanced way. But as soon as that lifts, we're kind of priming ourselves for that, and we've got now like a planning committee from the orchestra of players trying to plan artistically what we can do, and maybe some play curation things. So in essence, we're just getting ready to be able to possibly go out to people and I think that the future probably sees a sort of us going into more local areas, you know, when it comes to actually physically giving concerts. We're thinking about going out into people's gardens, or into, you know, going to the people rather than getting people to come to us. So we're sort of thinking of ourselves as small satellite things that we can just send out, and hopefully in that way, you know, people start to feel a bit more connected to music, and just have a bit more encouragement to feel that, you know, going out to concerts is just around the corner. I think we just need some hope, the feeling that things are moving forward, because at the moment it feels still very uncertain. Our future feels very uncertain. We don't know how long this is going to go on for, and I suspect it'll be several months yet before, and possibly, you know, years before we really feel like things are settled in a sort of feeling safe in concert halls. You know, the sort of incongruity of the people being in bars where you are actually quite close to each other, and yet I still feel that the concert hall is somewhere that feels way in the distance, but I think we just need some hope. So yeah, the sense of planning some things together in smaller groups is certainly our way forward, and yeah, the whole management and player team, it's really exciting to see everyone working together, and I think that's a massive positive from being in this sort of situation that we've never been in before. Everyone's thinking on their feet. Everyone's, you know, we've always been encouraged to go to the management with ideas, but it really is like everyone's just doing it. It's like sparking lots of conversations. So I'm really excited about that element of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have got back in touch with their creative side, whether they're a professional musician or you know, I don't know, graphic designer, because people have had a bit more space, perhaps, you know, that nobody's been commuting everywhere and stuff like that. It's freed up a bit of time, I guess, certainly early doors. And our orchestra's no different. There've been people who've come forward with some really creative ideas for social media. So I'm hoping that's going to carry on into the future, like you say, so that there's more of a team, even more of a team vibe when it comes to the creative side of things. We've worked well as a team for lots of the nitty gritty, you know, organizational stuff. But I think creativity is one of those things that's hopefully going to, moving forward, that's going to be more of a democratic thing. And then next week, similar to yourselves, we're starting to get together in smaller groups as well. For the now, separated into our musical families, so strings, brass and wind, yeah, for families, yeah. Until this BBC commissioned research from Keele University and I think Bristol University comes out, we won't be sure exactly what the deal is with aerosols. So I think until that comes out with hopefully something a bit more conclusive, we'll be keeping separated, like I say, into our musical families. But just to be in the same room as people, even if it is over 3.5 meters away, is going to be great, because whilst I've loved doing these orchestral montages to click track, and it's been great to still be connecting with our audience, it's not the same as being in a room with other people. I think we're all agreed about that. There's something, and that has been something that I've thought, you know, amazing as all this technology is, and I think, you know, 99% of the world would have been really done for if it wasn't for these conference call technologies that we've got. Just something really old-fashioned, like getting together in the same room and playing some music, or just having a conversation, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's great to do these things across Skype and Zoom, but a conversation's so much better in the same room with humans, isn't it? And music's no different. It's so much better doing it in the same room as people. So I am really looking forward to that.
What I will say about the being in the same room, because of course I think everyone was a little bit nervous about how it would be to be in the same room, and I was nervous about getting too emotional, and yes, I was emotional even before I even saw anyone. I was a little too emotional, but I guess because we were doing a recording, it was for the Edinburgh Festival, that it felt like we weren't sure what it would feel like to do a performance, and whether there'd be any magic in the room, because we're in a very dry, massive theatre. Like to see the bassoons and the you know, the horns at the back of the hall. It's 20 meters away. It's a long way away, and so that feeling of whether there be any electricity in the room, all I can say, it's magic. There's no replacing it. There just is not, and it was exceptional. Even though there's no one applauding or anything, there's still, you know, just that the feeling of just being absolutely in the moment.
Yeah,
very exciting.
So get sort of technical here, James, but what was it like ensemble wise, Sua? Was it difficult for people at the back of the ensemble to match up with people at the front? I mean, we're quite used to it in the lower brass because we're always quite a way back in the sort of naughty corner, as I call it. And pre-pandemic, we were dealing with health and safety surrounding noise. I'm sure Janet will feel what I'm saying here, being a percussionist. So we're kind of used to a bit of distance. You know? Yes. Huh?
So,
but I wonder for people who are more used to being near the front of an ensemble, like strings, I suppose bassoons are kind of a halfway house, but how you guys felt it in the strings, you know, being so spread out? Was it difficult ensemble wise?
What we decided before the actual project started, it was a 2-day project. We had a day just separate strings and separate winds and brass, just to play through some repertoire, because we realized it felt very unreasonable for ourselves to put ourselves under the pressure of going straight into a recording. So we had to sort of just get to play together. We played through some Bach chorales, Art of Fugue, some Schubert Symphony, Haydn, just to feel what it was like to do some really slow practice, just getting back into the groove of being totally in tune with each other, tuning in fourths and fifths. We even did scales, you know, and the wind and brass had a separate one, and at the same distance, like socially distanced. And so the test for us in the strings was just getting used to not sharing a desk. So everyone had their own stands. But all I can say is the fact that we were in a very dry theatre, which is very different, I guess, from normal generous acoustic theatres, that it actually helped. It takes a little while to adjust, but actually once you do adjust, I actually really enjoyed the element of having clarity, real clarity, and you just have to sort of get used to the fact that you hear yourself a lot. But then when the two teams joined together the next day, the second day, it was actually very heartwarming to know that some things sounded absolutely brilliant, like really well together. And there was just a few things where there's maybe like a more conversational thing. But as you say, you're very well used to the distance. So if you just say you just have to preempt a little bit more, you know, there were there's good banter going on about being late. But it was so much. You just felt, I mean, just overwhelmed really with the feeling of being as one again. So I'm really looking forward to the moment where you all get to do it too, because it was, yeah. The sad thing is at the end, yesterday when we all parted, we had nothing in the diary for when we're next going to meet. So it feels like, oh, and you know, it could be months. And the first joke was, yeah, well, Merry Christmas kind of idea. But no, of course, we're really hopeful that all of this will move forward.
We are really running out of time, I'm afraid. I've already kept you longer than I promised. I just quickly wanted to ask each of you, perhaps, if you had one personal resolution coming out of this, musical or possibly even not musical, what might that be?
I'm really inspired by Janet and her work with the NHS, I've got to be honest. And I'd be really interested to hear how your percussion workshops go, Janet. Just out of interest, will they be delivered in person or online? Or you don't know yet?
The idea is that we could do them outside, so they could be in person. That's the idea. I think, I suppose the one thing I just think it's healing, isn't it? It's using music for healing and for, as I say, for this communication thing. That for me is the uppermost thing now, is to use music as a way of communicating, as we've always done, but really especially now.
Help enabling people, isn't it? You know, with a new focus, and yeah, enabling people.
And to be confident in saying that's what it can do. You know, I think sometimes it's proprietors, we're almost a bit too polite or a bit too bashful or modest about what it could do, or it might require special pleading or special intellect or something. And it's like, no, come on, this force, it's so important. Greg, what were any resolutions of yours?
Absolutely, it's almost like orchestras don't need to be shy about the great stuff they're doing. I think it's the more people hear, the better. I don't think there's any sort of, there's no time, as you say, to be shy. Or I think, and the audiences, they come and they enjoy it. And you know, I've realised the kind of how much of a loyal audience we have, and then bringing in the new people, because I think there's a certain element where I've noticed where people are hesitant to think that everyone will like this, but everyone does. I think it's really heartening to see the responses from our audiences from around the country. So that's really been heartening for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. I almost think that there's a lot of people in the country, you know, if they're not in perhaps a care home or a child in a school, they maybe wouldn't get a chance to experience some of the outreach work that we do. So those people in the middle, I guess, the main way we connect with them are concerts, which at the moment aren't happening too much. But when they are happening, it'd be great if, we could shout about it a bit more, be loud and proud, and to say to people, you don't have to dress up in anything fancy. If you're worried about when you need to clap, just follow other people's lead. There's no stress. A concert is a pretty relaxed affair. So, a resolution would be to shout a bit more loudly and proudly about the outreach work that we do, and
oh my goodness, man, you have frozen
keep on doing what we do in the concert hall. And hopefully then people, that we're not just people in penguin suits, we go out into the community. You know, it's a living, breathing thing, an orchestra.
There it is. Folks, we are now out of time. I'm so sorry to say, but I hope you at home have enjoyed this chance to get to know some of the dedicated, passionate personalities who really drive our nation's orchestras and their real desire to give all that they can of themselves to all of us. If there's an orchestra near you, amateur or professional, please do take this moment to visit their website and find out if there's any way you can help them to keep brightening your locality, and do venture out to hear them perform as any opportunity arises again. They can't wait to see you. Meanwhile, you might like to consider becoming an RPS member and join us as we explore and celebrate more of what makes Britain Philharmonic. For now, a big thank you and a very, very best wishes to today's guests. Co-Principal Cello of the Scottish Chamber Orchestra, Sue Lee, Bassoonist with the Ulster Orchestra, Greg Topping, Principal Tuba of the BBC National Orchestra of Wales, Daniel Trodden, and Principal Percussionist of Manchester Camerata, Janet Fulton.